Welcome, one and all, to Witness Titanic, a new inquiry into the sinking of the most famous ship of all time. This is an episode being recorded from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. My name is James Penca, and for weeks I have been telling you how close we would get to Titanic herself, and I am happy to report that as I speak these words, we are just hours away from the very spot she went down. In fact, we are technically the first Titanic inquiry to return to the scene of the disaster. These are the lengths we are going to for our investigation. I am currently on board the Dino Schwest on a research and imaging expedition to the Titanic wreck site. No manned subs, no artifact recovery. We are just documenting the wreck in unbelievable, never-before-seen detail. As a researcher of RMS Titanic Incorporated, I am out here lending a historical hand, and I will be monitoring the footage sent up from the ROVs and helping identify things that we see for the expedition team. It is an honor of all honors to be here, and the anticipation for the coming weeks of research and imaging is unbearable, but it is also an honor to call in a fellow expeditioner as a witness for this week's episode. He is an oceanographer and a co-leader of this expedition to Titanic, the one and only David Gallo. Hello, David.
Hey, James.
How are you?
Well, I don't know if I'm the only Dave Gallo, but I happen to be the only Dave Gallo oceanographer that I know.
That's right, and certainly the only one on the ship.
I am definitely well, I hope so anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. It's a really special occasion to be reaching Titanic today.
Yeah, the anticipation's growing quickly. You know, when you think that in just a few hours we'll be on that site where that tragedy happened, and we're getting ready to put vehicles in the water.
Incredible.
Just a short time, about 2 hours after they hit the water, we're going to be seeing Titanic.
You just sent chills down my spine. I'm trying to wake myself up to it a bit because it doesn't seem real, and I've been focusing on so many other things. I've been trying to do some social media for RMST and stressing about uploading this and uploading that, and I got to remind myself that today we're going to be looking at Titanic later.
Yeah, and I think one thing that gets lost now and then is that we're actually putting those instruments. They're going to a completely different world than the world we're familiar with. Bottom of the ocean's mostly unexplored. Yes, that depth where Titanic is about the mid depth of the ocean, about 4,000 meters to plus miles, and I think today probably 10% has been explored because it's the pressure, the darkness, the cold, the remoteness. It took 4 days for us to get out here. And the technology. We've had to wait a long time to get the cameras, the vehicles, the telemetry, all that stuff together. So. I sometimes say it's not rocket science, it's a lot tougher, because when you think of it, from here to Mars is one atmosphere, and then we're looking in some places 1,000 atmospheres. So the whole idea to be able to explore from here, from the surface, is pretty cool to be there too. But you'll have live images of Titanic. You walk down the hallway, come out of your cabin, walk down the hallway, go into the control room. There it is.
Wow.
Boom. Yeah.
I've been struck by a thought this week as we've been explaining to the crew of this research vessel, who don't know much about Titanic or maybe even diving to shipwrecks. They do oil rigs and such. So they're very interested in all this, and we've been explaining to them what this means to us and what this means to the science community. And we're explaining to them that we're coming down with this new technology, and people online have been asking, like, what are we doing this for again? People are critical of that, and it's Titanic is just this innovator. She innovates our technology for us in a way, like you say, rocket science, it's like the moon. If the moon wasn't up there, would we have explored space as much as we have?
Right.
Because the moon gave us a destination. A moon gave us something to work towards, and then when we got there, then it becomes Mars or wherever. Right. Titanic, if it wasn't for Titanic, a lot of this technology wouldn't have even been given the funding to be created.
Yeah, you're hitting on a very important point, is that I think Titanic, because of the goal that it is, always the Mount Everest for ocean exploration, a lot of the instruments today were our grandchildren and great-grandchildren of those instruments that were used to find Titanic, the cameras, the sonars, and the like. So you're exactly right. And there's thousands and thousands of shipwrecks out there, and not like Titanic, but wrecks nevertheless. And Titanic has given us the ability not only to find those wrecks, but to explore them in deep water. So we're learning what instruments we need. We're also learning about what kind of techniques to find and to explore a deep water shipwreck.
We are already diving so deep, literally and figuratively, into this topic. But to kind of go back to the beginning, because I know people will love to hear this from you, and then we'll talk more about the expedition, how it's going, and all that. But and I'm sure you've answered this question a million times. But how did you? I know you came to Titanic in a bit of a roundabout way. So I guess I should first ask, how did you come to oceanography, to the deep ocean? How did this happen?
Yeah, it's a story that I try to relive in my mind, because I was a very poor student. I have ADD, and I didn't know that back then. I only found that out recently with my own children, my two boys, because they have ADD, and I sat through the testing, and I thought, wow, I can't do any of that stuff. So a poor student, grade-wise and test-wise. But at night, I was out every night with my telescope. I was building model rockets. I was president of the Math and Science Club, total nerddom, in high school, president of the Rocketry Club, and wanted to be a scientist. It's something that I dreamed about. Of course, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and some would argue I never grew up, but so back then it was the space race. But there was Jacques Cousteau in the Underwater World on TV. There was Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges, and there I was wanting to all these things, but told that you better do something else. Don't bother applying to colleges because you just don't have the aptitude, don't have the test scores. So that was I trusted my teachers, and I trusted my guidance counselors, and I sold shoes for 7 years after high school. A good job. I enjoyed that job, but that drive, the curiosity about the oceans and about exploration, about space, was always there. One day I was flipping through a National Geographic, and there was a hand-drawn picture of a mountain at the bottom of the sea by Bob Ballard. And that did something to me. I can't explain it. It threw a switch. And I didn't get suddenly smarter, but I did get focused. And I took that magazine to the local university, State University of New York at Albany. 2 years later, got my bachelor's degree, made my first dive in the submarine Alvin, then went on to get a master's, and then went on to get a PhD. I had to bust my butt to do that. I remember watching the sun rise and set many, many times because I was writing my notes over and over and over again. But I finally got to that point that I was considered a scientist, and that was never a goal to me because I was just driven by curiosity. And that, I think, is the important point, was that, as I said, I didn't get suddenly smarter, but I did get focused, and I was able to feed my curiosity with the goal being always discovery. So that's how I got into this world. And I had opportunities to go to geology, physics for another opportunity, but There was something about the sea that I read Kon-Tiki, the book Kon-Tiki, many, many, many times when I was a kid. One of the few books I could read. That and Sherlock Holmes, and the idea of a team of people going to sea and working together. That always stuck with me, and so here we are. We're on a voyage with a team going off into a special place.
Yeah, you're doing the thing that you saw as a kid, which is
it's not a balsa wood raft though.
Right.
It's a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. What you saw that mountain and you can't explain. I had that similar experience playing Titanic Adventure Out of Time, the video game from the 90s. I can't explain to people the first time I discovered. I was just exploring on my own. I was 6 years old, so I didn't really know what I was clicking on. And I happened to stumble across the cargo hold, I think. And I ran downstairs and I told my whole family about it. And they had no interest, but I was like, no, you don't get it. Yeah. I found it. And it was just this like adventure explorer side. I don't know where that comes from. But okay, so we know how you got into it, and that's incredible. So most people listening to this podcast do so due to the word Titanic and the Titanic part of it. So how did you swing around to specifically being? You're such a respected Titanic person, and you've been to Titanic. How many times? This will be
it's only the third. So
third expedition to Titanic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
so
never dove on Titanic.
Right.
Always robots. But.
Yes. So how did that come about that you?
Yeah. Interesting enough. That picture in the National Geographic that got me into oceanography, that article by Bob Ballard. 1986, I got a call from Bob saying, I found the Titanic, and I'm busy with that for a while, so I'd like you to come to Woods Hole and join my team. It'd be my second in command. It was odd. I had just gotten my PhD pretty much, and I had an opportunity to go to a university where they promised me all sorts of stuff, a great salary, great funding. My career was pretty much paved for me. Bob told me, he said, I don't know what I can pay you. I don't know if I can pay you. I don't know what you'll be doing, but whatever it is, it'll be the first time anyone's ever done it. And I said, that's it, sold.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up at Woods Hole with Titanic. Titanic was everywhere. Pictures of Titanic were everywhere around the laboratory. And the excitement from the public was something that we weren't prepared for. I thought, and most of us did, that 1987, 88, it would die out. And it's been growing ever since. I'm always impressed with how much enthusiasm there is for the wreck.
Yeah, it's Titanic never seems to go away, and people have people find an issue with anything, but we announced we're going back to RMS is going back to Titanic for the first time since 2010, and some of the reaction is, why what is with this ship, and it's hard to describe, but it never dies, it never goes away. So we're going back, and we'll go back many more times.
Yeah, actually, I retired from Woods Hole about 7 years ago, and after 2010, I was one of the co-leaders of that expedition to Titanic.
Was that your first to Titanic?
No, I was earlier with the Russians and the Keldysh of the Mirs. But when I walked off the ship in 2010, I said, well, that's my career, put a bow on it. But there was a challenge that I didn't finish, and that was when the Titanic book came out. The picture on the front of that book, so dramatic, the bow of Titanic sitting there with the robot coming over the side.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Captivating.
Yeah.
It drove me crazy that was a drawing by Ken Marshall. And then now there's some story building here, because what got me interested in the oceans was a drawing, hand-drawn. And now what held my attention was that photo, or that picture that Ken Marshall did that was now the cover of Bob Ballard's book. I took that picture of that cover and put it over my desk, and there it sat for years and years, because I vowed to myself that I wanted to work towards making that the real thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the technology to do that back then. So over the past 10 years, 12, 13 years, new technology was developed, new techniques were developed, and not just the sensors. There were lasers now, there were better cameras, there were better sonars, and the ability to collect that information, to store that information, to see that information, visualize, got much, much better over in that time. And so here's this opportunity to go back, to take another step toward that, and I think this time we've got it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's one of the driving things. The other part of it for me is I want to give back. A single image got me excited about science and woke me up, got me focused. And hopefully somewhere along the line, I'm hoping that I produce an image that will stimulate other people in the same situation. So
I'm certain you will. I'm sure you are. I'm certain you already have, honestly. Yeah, it's very cool that there's this running thing in your life and in your brain, this visual. There's the mountain picture, and then Ken Marshall's, and then you're driven to make imagery, and here we are on this expedition, attempting to do that on a level that's not been seen before. Which is a good segue into why a lot of people are tuning in. I think they're not tuning in for me; they're tuning in for this expedition. This is such an honor to be on this expedition personally, and to be on here with you and Rory and everybody. There's a cute video that RMS T made. They never put it out, but they asked me on camera once what it would mean to be invited to go. But before I knew I was coming, and I pretty much started crying with just the thought of being able to go. And so, to be here is a dream of dreams. My family's very proud. It's been a very fun time for everybody. But this is your third expedition. So how has it been going so far for you? This is our fifth day at sea, I think.
Yeah.
So how has it been going?
Well, to me, a good expedition it's about the team, it's about the technology, it's about the techniques, and I've got to tell you, James, you fit right in. You would never know that this is your first.
Thanks.
And what you bring to the table is important. It's not just. I get a little bit disturbed sometime when I see people that focus on the guy at the microphone standing there with his baseball cap on and jumpsuit, being the explorer, but when it really takes a whole team to get this job done. And not all scientists, there's technicians, there's engineers, and there's even the ship's crew that are incredibly important. This has been incredible to me. I've never been on a ship like this. The Dino Schwest, and with a crew like this, with a science team like this, with this kind of technology. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, we've had a good time. We've been having a good laugh, lots of good conversations. We've had good food. I've been very
great food.
Pleasantly surprised by the food. So that's been
great
good.
Weather, which is important too.
Yes, I don't have much to base it off of, so I will take your word for it that this is good.
Trust me.
Yeah, it can get much worse. Okay, good to know. So we arrive today. They tell us around 8 p.m. tonight. I'm very excited to arrive. We've got it'll be a madhouse once we're there.
Sure.
Everybody will be running around like we're hurrying. It's that hurry up and wait kind of thing. Like we're all just so eager to get there. So do you have something about this expedition, whether it's the technology or anything else, that you're looking the most forward to?
I want to see those first images. One of the challenges we've had too, my thesis work was mapping the deep ocean, and it was exciting back then. We had very primitive sensors to do that with compared to what we have today. Today, everything's gotten much more sophisticated. As you can see things with much more clarity, better precision, and And to do that, it's not one sensor. It means having cameras and lasers and magnetometers, all those things that we've got this time. So there was this thing called sensor fusion. Grew up with that in science. All those sensors coming together to one kind of image, and we've got the power to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing those building blocks coming out of the data stream, and I think that's the number one thing for me. Also, I'm always fascinated that we're going to have 2 robots in the water. That means 2 pilots, 2 teams, 2 robotic teams working together with the ship's crew to allow us to do this kind of exploration. So I want to see that too.
Yeah.
I feel, as I said, I retired once. But this is very exciting to me, and always with the goal of maybe putting Ken Marshall out of business. But I know now that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just so driven now to that, to appreciate the hand-drawn work, because it's got his emotion in it.
Oh my gosh!
Can't compare with that. But so I want to see it's like a play to standing backstage and watching a performance.
Right.
It is a performance.
RMST is operating this expedition.
Yep.
For those at home that don't know, there's no manned submersibles this year. It's just robotics. There's no artifact recovery this year. We're just imaging. It's a very hands-off kind of operation, but it is in preparation for next year or in the following years, whenever we get a chance to come back to then start recovering artifacts. I don't know if this is part of your interest at all, or if you have no interest in it. Do you have artifacts that you've loved to see in the past, or that you hope to see in the future? Any artifact tidbits?
No, having grown up in a way again with Titanic since my first day at Woods Hole, there was it was the same year Bob explored it with the submarine Elvin. So grew up with the pictures of the artifacts, and always been fascinated by that, because to me they're powerful, because you wonder what the history of that thing is. I mean, who held that cup last? Whose doll was that? Whose shoes were that? This voyage into the past to me was very emotional. So I wouldn't say that I have a special one. They're all in a way special. I can tell you that the first time I walked into the room where they're being conserved and the like, and there they were, took my breath away. It still happens, even though I've been there now a dozen times. But you walk into that room and those things lived through that night. And I'm one of these people that believe that things have a memory, that they remember where they've been. So no, nothing special. And I'm not, as you've heard me say on board, I'm not a Titanic aficionado.
Sure.
I don't know much about the ship. I know a lot. I don't know much about the pieces on the seafloor. But what I do know about is that it's our job to bring that story, to bring those images, to bring that feeling of exploration back to the wider public that's there thirsting for this kind of stuff. And so I'm not looking for anything in particular, but what you guys say, these things are important. So.
Do you have a part of the wreck field or the debris field or the wreck? Like, let's say we could only go down for one day.
Yeah.
Like, we go down tomorrow and the whole thing's over.
Yeah.
Where do you send the robots to film?
Yeah, I'm a kind of guy that, sure, I want to see something, but what's in that pile over there that we see in the sonar? In 2010, our goal was to map the entire debris field, but mostly with sound, because with sound you can see a long way. With sonar, you can image, but you have no idea mostly what you're looking at.
Right.
And there are places where we can see clumps of things, but we don't know if they may be rocks, something in the seafloor, or if they're bits of the Titanic artifacts. So I'm always driven a little bit to go off the beaten path where no one's ever been, and it's a gamble, but I like that kind of thing. So I would. It depends on the job too. What's our mission? Is our mission to find new things, or is our mission to record what's there? Part of the company's role is to be the curator of the not only the museum exhibits but also the artifacts still on the seafloor. And you can't manage or protect something if you don't know what's there. Right. So part of the mission is to record what's on the seafloor and what kind of state is it in. So if that's the mission, okay, I'm going to go to the debris field. If it's the other one, if it's just let's explore and see what else is there, then I'm going to take a gamble on some other place.
Yeah. One of the things about this expedition that's going to be so special is that we are going to be mapping the debris field like you guys did in 2010, but we're going to be doing it with, much, 14 years advanced technology from 2010. So we're going to be able to get a look at the wreck that no one has had before. And not only, we'll get beautiful images back, and I hope that those inspire the next David Gallo to get their focus and start a new life of being a scientist. But we're also going to be able to see artifacts that we have no idea were there, and we even have, I'm the last person who should be talking about this because I don't know the tech, but a magnetometer, is that correct?
Yeah.
That sees below the seafloor.
Absolutely.
A few feet, I believe, that will be able to see metal objects below the seafloor. For Titanic people at home listening to that, their minds are exploding right now because that means we will have a whole nother debris field to look through, essentially. Hopefully, yeah. And so that's just an incredible opportunity. One thing I'd love to ask you about, I know that in the grand debate over should we leave the artifacts alone, should we leave the wreck alone, all that stuff, that you actually did have the opposing view for a time, and that that you saw the artifacts for the first time, and it sort of changed you. Would you mind getting into that a little bit?
No, I don't mind at all. Sure. I mean, I've been called a pirate, grave robber in the media, and part of me finds that humorous. Part of me now finds that hurtful. That someone would say those things. If someone says that you guys are grave robbing, and I don't like it, I get that. I get that. Because when I was at Woods Hole with Bob Ballard, and that's the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and we heard that a year or so after Titanic was discovered that there was a team out there picking up artifacts, and Bob Ballard wanted to keep it pristine, if you will, not to touch anything. It was an underwater museum, and our feeling was this was grave robbing. They're taking things off of this object on the bottom. There are bodies there, et cetera, and I spoke out against it with Bob Ballard. I spoke out against what was going to become the RMS Titanic Incorporated, that team, and. It wasn't until some years later, because Titanic was a bad word at Woods Hole for many, 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 many years.
Wow. It
was a distraction from pure science. I didn't believe that part then. And so many years later, I happened to walk into one of the exhibits with a colleague of mine, and we sat there and we watched people come in, young and old, families, individuals, all different nationalities, and watch the looks on their faces as they saw the big piece, for instance, in Las Vegas. And that did something to me too, because I recognize now that this idea that Titanic should only be experienced if you've got a cap and gown,
right?
That Titanic should be experienced if you're only an academic, because that's the chance for the public to have a legitimate experience with the Titanic. That's the real deal that you're looking at. It's not on the bottom of the ocean, but it's right in front of you. And it can be done respectfully, recovered respectfully. So I changed my attitude around completely. I thought that, why should people have to look over Bob Ballard's shoulders or Dave Gallo's shoulders or watch a James Cameron movie to get the feeling, that authentic feeling? And so now I think differently about it, and as long as it's done tastefully and respectfully.
Of course.
So I've come around now. So.
Yeah, I loved hearing that in Orlando, because it is something that is always ongoing, and with the expedition being announced, and I'm a spokesperson for the company, so I appear on things, and I'll read a comment or two and then regret it, because people can be mean, but yeah, like you, I get it. I get the opinion, but all I ever say to people is, gosh, bring your little nephew or niece to a Titanic exhibit, artifact exhibit, and they will never be the same.
One of the things in that regard that is interesting in my life is that I've been living in the same home for 30 years, my wife, my family, and a small community on the Cape Cod. My neighbor been there all that time, and one day we were both out raking leaves in the fall, and he said, "I saw your lights on late last night." He said, "Were you working on the Titanic stuff?" I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was doing that. We're getting ready for another expedition." And he said, "I never told you this, but my great-grandfather died on the Titanic." Stunning to me.
Incredible. Yeah, that he never told you.
He never told me. He never told me. And we talked about two things, what that meant to his family, and how they survived that, if you will, what happened after he had perished. He was a buyer for Jordan Marsh, a Boston department store, and he was coming back from a show in London, I believe. But the other thing we talked about was the artifacts, and he said, look, it's important that we never forget what happened that night, and that the memory of that event, that the history of that event goes on in time, and what better way to do it than to have artifacts, again, treated respectfully.
Yeah.
When we go to Titanic, even though we've never seen human remains, we treat it as a gravesite. We do. We don't touch anything that we don't have to touch. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not the ship, not the sediments. We don't dig into the sediments. So everything is done very respectfully. The more the public sees that, I think the people that say stop understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I also often ask people, how long after an event does something become archaeology? When do we, you can go to Pompeii today in Italy, and you can walk around a city that went through a terrible disaster, a natural disaster, and there a lot of bad things happened, but it happened long enough ago that we feel detached from it, so it's okay. It's okay to dig and put things in museums,
sure,
and take pictures with, and build a coffee shop within it. Like there's like a cafe in Pompeii now, because you need to eat something while you're there, I guess. It's pretty hot. So yeah, it's tough. It is a tough conversation, and there may not be a perfect solution, and it'll always rage, I'm sure. But like you said, respectfully, carefully, with so much love. I cannot tell you, and I can't tell you folks at home the love on this ship. I mean, even the crew members who are coming in right now, you folks at home can't see, but David and I are sitting in the lounge, which we've kind of turned into a Titanic research room. There's plans on all the walls and sonar maps, and this is where we have our meetings. And the crew, the engineers and the deckhands, they come in and they're asking us so many questions about Titanic.
Yeah.
And they're so interested. And what has really hit me is that how many of them have told me that their family is so proud of them for this voyage.
Isn't that amazing?
They usually do, like I said earlier, oil rigs and this and that. How cool that these guys, and they all got hats and shirts with the logo on it, and they're all going to get a styrofoam cup taken down with their name on it. Like, they're so excited. It's such a meaningful thing. They're so proud, and they're sending pictures home, and it's just the life aboard Titanic deserves to be celebrated. And here we are on a different ship 112 years later, and the life aboard this ship is being ignited by Titanic again. It's a magical thing that we can't ignore.
Absolutely, it is magical, and I'm smiling as you say that about the crew, because it is infectious in a way. But Titanic is something. I've gone from the South Pole to the North Pole, Argentina to tip of Norway, and you say Titanic, people know the story.
Yeah.
And again, the more we can provide for them to know about that night, I think is beneficial. Titanic did influence the technology, the development of new technologies for exploration. But it also makes us look inside ourselves about that night, about the tragedy, about how we treat that cultural resource, if you will, sitting on the bottom of the ocean. So it's also done that. There's so many ways Titanic can reach out and touch people. But on board the ship, you're right. It's this wonderful feeling. It gives people a chance to know that we're a team.
Yeah.
We're all got that T-shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
Which says Titanic Team on it, and it's a very something we're very proud of. At the same time, we should be mindful that we are going to be the eyes of the world. Tonight we'll start to see that great ship and relive that tragedy.
Incredible. Well, to wrap this up, and I like to ask this of people in the Titanic and adjacent community, do you have another interest that is completely not about this that you want to tell us about?
Yeah. In science or just in general?
It can be anything. It just can't be ocean related.
No. Not ocean related.
Yeah, just something that you like that's completely not
in a way,
connected.
I'm involved with climate change and helping the public understand that. No, I'm music, and I think the one thing, being out here for a month's time, to me, at this stage of my life, is a big chunk of what I've got left. And the one thing, of course, I love being with my family. In fact, I'm asked a lot, what's your favorite place on earth? It's home.
Yeah.
Why? Because I have my garden family. I love my garden.
Yeah.
And I love and I'm not a vegetable grower, but I am a rose grower. Love sitting there. I've got a place that we call the thinking spot.
Okay.
That I can sit and think and ponder things. But that's, growing roses. I look forward to it every year for them to bloom anew.
And with that, the witness withdrew. What an interview. What a man. What a witness of Titanic David Gallo is. A huge, huge thank you to David for joining me. He absolutely did not need to do this. We have all been so tired and so excited for the coming days, but he just had no hesitation, said absolutely would love to chat. So big thanks to David. Big thanks, as always, to Ege Erdogan for the theme music. Folks, that's it for this week. We will come back here and talk more Titanic next week with our witness, Rory Golden. He's been to Titanic 3 times. He's witnessed Titanic with his own 2 eyes. So who better to talk to next week than him? We will probably not get around to him until later in the expedition because we have a lot of work ahead of us. So hope to get to Rory as soon as possible. He's bound to be a laugh. Until then, I am your chairman, James Penca, signing off from the middle of the North Atlantic. If you like this podcast, please consider subscribing, following, leaving a review, or pressing the star button. I don't know. Just do whatever you can to help support the podcast. It goes a long way. Be nice to each other, Titanic community. I will see you in our next episode when we continue our ongoing investigation into the loss of the RMS Titanic.